Hi, I'm Jenny Goutet. I'm the author of Clean Historical Romance. And just to say upfront that clean romance is an industry term, which is why we use it. And it allows readers who want to read books that are free of excessive violence or, swear words or sex scenes, and authors who want to write those types of books to be able to find each other. So that's why I'm using this term. And in terms of historical romance, I write mostly Regency, but I'm starting to dip more into Georgian. And that's one of the books that I want to talk about today that is going to be coming out in June of next year. I started to think, well, why do I like historical romance so much? I think for me, I grew up reading a lot of books from past centuries. Even when I was younger, I loved Little House on the Prairie. I loved Anne of Green Gables, which is, went from the century before mine to the century after. It was like more in my century. And I would be curious to see what you think in the comments. I mean, I would love to know how you stumbled on it, why you like it. And as I got older, drifted on to Jane Austen, of course, Elizabeth Gaskell, William Thackeray, Charles Dickens, and I just found so much beauty in the historical books. And I started to discern some of the books are more positive. Like, I kept forgetting every time I would read a Thomas Hardy book, like, okay, you got to stop reading these books. They're so depressing. With some of them, like even Dickens, when there was hardship, I would see so much nobility of character, and it inspired me to have a more noble character as well. And I think that that is what inspires my writing. Like, I want to portray, like, not life is easy. As much as I have a great sense of humor, I am not a rom-com writer. I wish I were. I wish I were that funny. I wish my humor transmitted to the page, but I'm not a rom-com writer. So sometimes there are some hard things going on, but what I want to portray is that it's the nobility of character that brings about the resolution and just inspire people to persevere. But I think when I was researching for A Daring Proposal, so this is a series called Memorable Proposals, and it's published by Cedar Fort. And actually, I gained the audio rights. So these books are on my YouTube channel. If you look in the playlists, you can see all of my audiobooks that are available for you. And A Daring Proposal is a very very history battle centric book because it takes place during the Battle of Waterloo. So the defeat of Napoleon. I live in France. I love, France. I love my country. I'm a French citizen now as well, dual citizen. Love Napoleon. Yeah, I mean, he's got some problems too, but I mean, I just love everything about history. I love visiting the museum in Les Invalides. That's where, you have everything about Napoleon is there. So all that I find super interesting. But of course, when I'm writing Regency, it's from a British perspective. So, my heart kind of swayed towards everything British. But in all of my research for this book, I'm kind of, meandering. In my research for this book, one of my French friends recommended a book by one of her ancestors, and I think it was her uncle that published the memoir in the 1980s. And this book is called Le Grognard Putigny, Baron d'Empire. Okay, so this book is fascinating. It does not have an English translation, but it is about a young servant, like tenant farmer. He serves the Marquis Beaurepaire. And he was probably born like around 1767 or something like that, which is about close to the time that my book is set. And so he grows up, tenant farmer. When they hear that there's the revolt against the noblesse, he and the others come together and they're like ready to defend him. They're like, nobody's going to touch him. Of course they did. And what ends up happening is this guy, what's his name? Putigny. What ends up happening is that he goes and joins Napoleon's fledgling army, and he stays with him from 1792 all the way through 1815, including the disastrous foray into Russia. And this book is not well known. I know about it because my friend gave it to me. It was published in the 80s. I think it's out of print, maybe. I got an old copy or something. It's not well known. And there's even a picture of his writing. I don't know if you can see this. 6 big notebooks that the grognard, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, wrote laboriously with a hand that is more accustomed to the saber than the plume, the pen. So le grognard is a term that they call Napoleon's soldiers. He was so passionate about Napoleon. The reason he became a baron of the empire was because he plunged, like they lost one of the golden eagles, and he plunged into the pond or whatever to retrieve it. And Napoleon heard about it, and so he made him a baron. And but this guy did not know how to read or write. He was just an ordinary, simple tenant farmer. And the way he learned was with his first early earnings. He bought pen and paper, and I don't know who taught him, but he learned to read and write. And he ended up, obviously becoming like a nobility, but it was a different kind of nobility. It was not the monarchy, but it was the empire. He ended up marrying the niece of Talleyrand, and I'm pretty sure I have this right. Talleyrand was the guy that negotiated peace in Vienna for France. There's some other things with him, but I think that I have that right. What was so fascinating about reading this book was that I felt like this guy came out of the grave and was speaking to me. And it made 1792 feel like just today. He had humor. He talked about a joke that he made. He describes the scene. He described when he was doing his first guard, and he was terrified because he heard a noise, and he called out to them, like, present yourself or whatever. And there was no noise. And so he shot, and it ended up being a dog. He did not kill the dog, but the dog ran off, and then he laughed at himself like, okay, I was so afraid over a dog. So like these little moments that were so human. When he talked about in Russia, the Russians, when they came behind the French army, they were burning the buildings full of wounded men, including their own. And the only reason he survived it, so few people survived, the only reason he survived was because he was sick, and his servant got a carriage for him, got a horse, covered him up and everything. His servant died, but he survived, and it was because of this. And he was so passionate about protecting Napoleon, and he was disappointed because of their defeat at Waterloo. And then Napoleon was exiled, and he actually was one of the old soldiers that went to receive Napoleon's body when he died and accompany it and stand guard overnight one last time and accompany it to its final resting place in Les Invalides. This was a real guy. And hearing about his hopes, he was brutal. He was a soldier, and he was brutal. hearing about his personality, his hopes, and it just, this feeling that somebody came back from the dead and was talking to me. I realized that I think that's why I love historical romance. I think that's also why I loved writing A Daring Proposal so much, because a lot of my characters and the battle was very researched. Like, I had maps, and and some people were like, please, enough of the battle. I'm here for the romance. And the romance was there. But I wanted to get the battle scene right. And so many of those details were people who, like, they lived. It really happened like that. And so being able to pull in those details and bring them to life once again. And I think that's what it is about historical romance. I love to bring people back to life, like, let their stories not be forgotten, even if it's my imagined stories. That's the case with this upcoming book that I have coming out with Haven. It is now available for pre-order, and I'll put links in the description, called A Love Once Lost. After filming this video, I realized that it was a bit long for one video, so I've split it into two. This is officially the end of part one, and you can stay tuned for part two, which will be out on Wednesday, where I talk about my upcoming book with Haven, which is set in 1770s Spa. So I'm excited about that. And if you like historical fiction, check out my playlist. You can listen to a lot of my audiobooks for free. If you're interested in Waterloo specifically, make sure to listen to A Daring Proposal. That is the story of Frederick and Phoebe, what it was like to live through that particular battle. Talk to you on Wednesday.